Welcome back to Built with AI. In today's episode, we're going to talk to Darren, who shipped BuzzerBee.
I'm notorious for missing buzzer calls. It was something that I wanted to try and automate for myself.
And is currently sitting at about $150 in revenue and 50 users.
Figure out something that you can get some users for, use it for yourself, and then start to iterate from there, because it doesn't matter if you've got a bulletproof database or the best architecture in the world. If no one uses it, then doesn't need to scale.
He is a non-technical PM, so he learned how to ship this all on his own, just using AI tooling.
It took me about 3 weeks to go end to end. Proof of concept, prototype, working product.
I'm Colin, a health tech PM and chronic side hustler turned solopreneur. I've built SaaS apps that have made $0, a few $100, and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I'm excited to bring you stories of PMs, designers, and engineers who are working full-time jobs and shipping SaaS projects on their own using AI.
Cursor and all the AI tools, they want to just start writing code right away. Highly recommend against that.
Excited to dive in? When you're ready, I'll see you in there.
So this is the product that I built. It's called BuzzerBee, and really just started this to solve a problem for myself. So I live in an apartment building in Vancouver, and if you've ever shown up to an apartment building, you've seen the intercom system that they have, which gives you access into the building. So I'm notorious for missing buzzer calls. So I'll leave friends waiting outside, or I'll miss packages because I just missed the calls coming from the buzzer system. And it's just a small annoyance for me, but it was something that I wanted to try and automate for myself. And so that's how this was born. And so the way this works, if you don't know how a buzzer system works, is you connect your phone number into the building's buzzer system. And then when somebody buzzes your unit number, you'll get a phone call. You have to answer that phone call, and then you have to press an unlock digit. So it's usually 6 or 9, depending on your building. And then once you press that digit, the door will unlock and it'll give the person access to the building, and then they can get into the elevator as well. So what I wanted to do is build an app where I could basically unlock the buzzer. So if I'm expecting a delivery or expecting friends coming over, I can just unlock the buzzer, and then when they buzz, it'll automatically answer the phone, press that unlock digit, let them in, and then I'll be notified when somebody's entered the building. That was the whole premise behind it. And the way that I built this was super iterative. Like, it was not an app to start. I actually built this in 3 phases. One was just using Twilio. So Twilio is how I generate these phone numbers. I just wanted to test to see, like, can I actually answer these calls automatically and grant access? Started with Twilio, then moved on to Bolt, created a prototype for myself, and then that evolved, got really messy in Bolt, and then I had to restart, and then started again in Bolt, and then moved into Cursor, and then built it out into a fully functioning app. Took me about 3 weeks to go end to end. Proof of concept, prototype, working product, and it's got 30 customers right now, doing about $150 a month in revenue, and cost me $50 a month to maintain right now. So profitable.
Nice. Yeah, that's a good sign. And then just quick curious, like, did you have a technical background prior to doing this, or is this like your first time interacting with code?
So I did a business degree, but I did a specialization in technology management. And so I took database courses in school. I took some system design courses and things like that. And I took some basic programming courses as well, but I would not call myself a developer by any stretch. But I've always liked to be hands-on. And even as a PM, like, I'd spend a lot of time with data scientists, technical leads. Like, I like being involved in the build process. So I've picked up a lot of little nuggets through doing that. But I've actually tried to teach myself how to code probably 3 times in the last 10 years. I started a Udemy course or something, and you know how it's always like build an e-commerce website and you get something that just like doesn't really provide you any value. I always gave up at that point because I'm like, I just want to build something that's useful for myself. And this has been the first time where I think that's the underrated piece of vibe coding and tools like Cursor, Replit, Bolt, is like, you can actually just ask these tools to explain what they're doing as well. And you can learn a lot about how software is built just through that. And I thought that has been pretty cool and interesting to like bring me up to speed on how products get built as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. I definitely do the same thing. Like, I mean, it's a big domain, right? So even if you have a technical background, there's probably things you don't know about or you haven't done recently. And so just using the tools to kind of remind you is helpful. Do you want to give us a quick demo of BuzzerBee here? And then we'll talk a little bit more about like the actual process of building it.
Yeah, for sure. So The way I built this app, I'll just give a bit of background on like the technical stack. So it's a React Native app. I actually used Bolt to create the scaffolding of the app, basically. So I used Bolt because Bolt gives you React Native plus Expo to set up your app. I wanted that stack. So I started in Bolt, exported it to Cursor, and that's how I got to the point where it is now. And then it's deployed on Vercel. Yeah, I'll show you how this works. So I kind of told you a little bit about how the buzzer system works. So I've got a bunch of buzzers set up here. I'll show you this one, Kelowna Airbnb. So when you sign up on the app, you'll get a phone number. So I'll show you this here. So Kelowna Airbnb, you'll get a local virtual phone number. So this phone number comes from Twilio. When you sign up, this becomes your number. You're the only one who uses this number. And this is the number that you give to your building manager or concierge. That's the number that you set up with the buzzer. And that allows you to automate it through the app. So we'll just do a live demo here. So the buzzer's locked right now. So I'm going to call this number.
Access denied. Building is locked.
Cool. So buzzer's locked. I tried to buzz in. I'm simulating what would happen if you were at the intercom system calling it. Buzzer's locked, doesn't let you in. I'll unlock it, and then I'll call that same number again.
Access granted.
So what it did is it checked the database to see if this buzzer was unlocked, answered the call, pressed the digit. I don't know if you could hear the tone when it was pressing, but you can hear it press 9, and then gives the person access to the building, hangs up the call, and then I'm on Do Not Disturb, so you didn't see it come through, but I just got a text message on my phone saying someone's accessed the building.
Yeah, that's awesome. So again, you kind of, we'll say vibe coded this whole thing, right? You started off in Bolt, went over to Cursor, and then, got this. I think this is one of the cooler ones I've seen because I think the integration with the phone is something that's a little unexpected. So like, did you have any trouble with shipping that part of it specifically, or was it pretty straightforward?
Well, I don't want to say it was straightforward. And like I said, I tried to do this all the way in Bolt, and I made a mess. I made a real mess of it because I don't know if you've had better success building stuff end to end with a more complex database. Like, this app is not that complex, but you need to be able to manage a buildings table. You need to be able to manage users. You need to be able to manage phone numbers coming from Twilio, all of that stuff. And so I started to build this out in Bolt, and I just like really struggled with the context, providing Bolt enough context to actually iterate on things. Cursor was way better because you'd have full control over everything. You could give it the context that you needed, but it definitely requires you to be more hands-on. But I can show you how I went through that process if you want.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
So I actually wanted to just test, like I mentioned this earlier, but I wanted to test to see if you could actually manage your building's buzzer with a virtual phone number. So I tried this in N8N to just basically get a Twilio number, build that workflow to add some logic. Turns out you didn't even need to use N8N because Twilio has a studio that you can test stuff like this out. So I'll show you this. This is in Twilio where you can just set some triggers. So when a call comes in, it just answers the call. It says checking building access, and then it presses the unlock digit, and then it says access granted. So there's no logic even at this point. It's just like call comes in, it'll answer the phone, press 9, hang up the phone. So I did this. I got a Twilio number. I hooked it up to my building's buzzer system. Okay, it worked. It unlocked the door. So then next step was like, okay, I need some sort of interface to be able to lock and unlock the door. So then I went into Bolt, which I can show you over here. So Bolt is how I got just this basic UI scaffolded. I just wanted it super simple. I wanted a lock, unlock button. So that's what we ended up with here. And you can see it looks kind of similar to what we ended up with the final product. But just give me the ability to lock, unlock, set a schedule, things like that. So I got to that point, and then this is actually the second iteration on Bolt that you're seeing because the first one I had to completely restart because I just made such a mess of it. Didn't hook up any database or anything, just wanted the UI, exported it into Cursor, and that's when I started to hook up the backend, automate Twilio. So at first, like I had to go and manually grab numbers from Twilio and then insert them into the database. So all of that had to get automated after. But yeah, Supabase is what I use for the backend. It's super easy to use, actually. Love that product. Works really well with Cursor. They all these AI tools know how to integrate with Supabase, so I highly recommend that.
Yeah, definitely had some good experiences with Supabase as well. But yeah, so this is like the UI. And just to be clear, this is a web application right now. This is not a mobile app like what we're seeing in Bolt, or is this mobile?
It's a React native app, so it works web and mobile. I can actually show you. It's not on the App Store, but I've got it working as a progressive web app right now. So I can actually show you what this looks like on my phone. If you're not familiar with what a progressive web app is, it basically allows you to download a native looking app just through the web browser. So here's the app on my home screen. And when I open it opens up just like a native app would. And you can see this is the demo that we had open earlier. It's still unlocked. And I can control it straight through here. So this is just, downloaded through the browser. It's React Native plus Expo. And so the next step would be to get this onto the App Store. You should be able to bundle it on there. There's just some hoops that I have to jump through to get it onto the iOS App Store. And Apple plays a little funny with in-app purchases and things like that. So they take a pretty big cut, and they don't really want you going out to Stripe. I think some of that's changed now. Yeah, I just use Stripe for billing and user management. So I got to figure a couple things out before it gets onto the App Store. But the other thing is that, like, I don't even know if it needs to go onto the App Store yet. It's got 30 customers. People seem to like it, but I mean, downloading it through the browser seems pretty good right now. And also I want this to just be out of the way. It's not something that I'm trying to get people using all the time. Like, it's just quickly open it up, get it out of the way, forget about it, move on. Yeah, for sure. I mean, this seems like definitely a great start. Would you mind showing us like on the Cursor side? So I understand you start in Bolt, you kind of like did the mocks to some degree inside of Bolt, right? And then you mentioned inside of Cursor, you had to hook up like Supabase, hook up the backend. So do you want to just share a little bit more about like what that looked like and how you did that? Yeah, sure. So I'll pull up Cursor. There's a lot that we could dive into, but maybe where I'll start is just the process of going Bolt into Cursor and then where to go from there. So step one is when you export from Bolt, it just gives you a big collection of files that you can import into Cursor. And then at that point, I just start working with Cursor as a new chat here. And I'll say, hey, like, I want to add a database to this app now. Can you help me do this? I want to use Supabase. And then it'll give me a bunch of instructions, and it'll say, go to Supabase, create a project, get your keys, things like that. So I started there. And then you've probably seen this, but Cursor and all the AI tools, they want to just start writing code right away. Highly recommend against that. I spent a ton of time and probably way more credits than I could have just brainstorming and planning with Cursor. You could do this in ChatGPT or Claude if you wanted to save on credits like that, but I found it quite helpful to go through that process with Cursor. So step one is, okay, how are we going to design the database? Talk through the features that we want. I had a product requirements document that I built in ChatGPT before. So we use that as a foundation. We start talking through features. We start talking about database design, start talking about potential future features. And then we say, okay, come up with a plan on how we're going to implement this database. And it starts created like a ER diagram for me. It's pretty impressive what it can come up with. But I will say that it's not as easy as just like autonomous driving, have Cursor do everything for you. Like I was very much in the loop, and I do compare it a lot to how I've worked with development teams in the past. Like, I'm not just like, here's your product requirements document, come back and I want to see the demo. It's like, I'm involved in that process. And that was very much how this worked. The only thing is you're kind of playing all of the roles at the same time. So you're doing PM, technical lead, architect, designer, QA. So it's fun. Like it just feels like you're kind of like working with another person, albeit a very junior person, it feels like at some point. So yeah, that's how you get the database set up. I mean, we could go into like how I actually created the migration files and things like that, but I don't know how deep we want to go there. And then, so Supabase has the database tables that we're able to create. And then I've also got edge functions, which are just serverless Supabase functions that you can use. For example, like when a call comes into Twilio, Twilio needs to call a Supabase edge function to check whether or not the buzzer's unlocked. That'll send a signal back to Twilio. It'll say, okay, yes, now press that digit, things like that. Same thing for Stripe, managing payments and stuff like that. So all of that is kind of following that same process where you go with Cursor to brainstorm, plan, talk about how we're going to do this, break it up into smaller chunks, and then go and implement and then evaluate as well. So sometimes before we go and implement, I'll ask it, like, would the CTO approve this? Or is this following best practices? A lot of the times you'll find that it's not following best practices when you ask it. And so you just got to like play with it.
Yeah. Are you able to show us a demo by chance of like something small that you might be able to change in the product and just kind of go through that workflow?
We've got this activities tab, which basically shows you all of the logs for, I've got multiple buzzers set up on this one. So the activities tab, you can see Kelowna Airbnb, Calgary Condo. We could just build a quick filtering feature.
Yeah.
And I'll show you how I go through the process. For context, like if we were going to build something that would require a database change or a new edge function, that would usually take me about an hour to do using Cursor, but we could probably do this filtering feature in a few minutes here. So let's do that. So we'll go into Cursor. Usually how I start is you got to give it the right context. That's a given. So what I'll start is usually asking it to explain to me how something works, and then I can provide some more clarity from there. So I'll do just that. I'll say, can you tell me how the logs page works? You can be more structured if you want. Use 90% of my included usage.
That's all right. So when you tagged that file there, by the way, like what was the intent of the little @ symbol with the logs?
Oh yeah. So with Cursor, you've got this button here that says add context. So you've got all of your files that are sitting over here in your file tree. And if you know how, like I've been with the app since inception, so I kind of know what files exist and how things have been structured. So I could just say, Cursor, go look through the entire code base, tell me how the activity logs page works. It would have to look through the whole code base and try and figure out where that is. It could probably find it, but I just help it out and say, this is the logs page, tell me how it works, and then see how it interacts with the rest of the app. So the more context that you give it, the more files that you give it, typically makes it easier. So let's see what it came back with. Looking at the logs page, I can see it's a comprehensive buzzer activity log. Core functionality, so where is it getting data from? How is it filtering? Loading states, key features, shows you the 3 different types, so granted, forwarded, denied. Technical implementation. Okay, so that's good enough context. So then I can say, so given that, we want to brainstorm now this filtering feature. And I've got an idea of how I'd want this to look. I mean, we could do it with filter chips or we could do it with a drop down. Let's see what it comes up with. So one of the key things, I usually have to tell it not to write any code, or I'll say like, pitch me your top 3 designs or implementations for approval. I'll just say, don't write any code yet.
Yeah, that is my most common prompt. Don't write any code.
Yeah. And I've tried to set it as a Cursor rule, like don't write any code yet, but it still wants to always write code.
Right.
So let's see what it comes back with. You can go vague, you can go more specific if you really know what you want. I've actually tried this before twice and it came back with 2 different style features both times. So we'll see what it comes back with this time. I really like how Cursor comes back with some sort of like sketch even sometimes.
Right.
So you can see that it's got building A, building B, apartment complex, office tower. So the default is that it's going to show all activity. 2, tap the building chip, filters to that building only, chip becomes active, all activity. Just use local state management. So it's asking some questions back. Do you want building counts displayed in the chips? Should the filter persist when user leaves and returns to the screen? How should we handle buildings with very long names in the chips? Any preference for the chip styling? Cool. Like that's typically how I would interact with a developer on my team. Like I'd say, hey, like let's brainstorm this feature, and then they'd ask some questions back. So that's actually really good. So let's say I want the chips to have the number of logs associated with that building. Actually, let's answer its questions one by one. 1, 2, no, we don't need it to persist. 3, how should we handle buildings with very long names in the chips? Maybe truncate? Any preference for the chip styling, rounded versus pill-shaped? Let's do pill-shaped. So I know you've actually got some experience with this, but I don't have a component library set up for this.
Right.
app.
Yeah.
I could go and build a component library, but I don't actually have filtered chips as a component, and I don't use it anywhere in the apps. I've got lots of modals, got lots of buttons, got lots of cards, but I don't have filtered chips. So let's see what it comes back with when I just say pill-shaped.
And while it's working on that, it seems like, so you mentioned that like you have some familiarity with the code base, you know what like edge functions are and like the database tables and all that stuff. So like, would you say that you had to become more technical to get better results, or like, what's the relationship here between you? Actually, it seems like you understand what's going on to some degree with the code base.
Yeah, I had to because, and I struggle with the word vibe coding because the first time that I tried to do it, and this is actually my second app that I've built. The first one, I tried to build a clone of Splitwise because I didn't like the way that Splitwise monetizes. And so completely vibe coded it, didn't really look at what was going on, kind of laid back, just like, no, do this. Disaster. Same thing when I first tried this Buzzer app. Disaster. And then I was like, okay, it's not completely hands-free yet. Maybe like give it a year or 2 years and you can just completely vibe out and just say, no, do this. No, I had to learn what was going on. And so what I would do is ask it to explain what it's doing as it's going, and that would just give me the context. And so, like, yeah, I've spent a couple weeks in this code base, so I know roughly what's going on.
That makes sense. I usually suggest the same thing, but I was curious to see if you had a strategy where you didn't have to learn, basically, and there was like some magic way to do it. What it doesn't sound like it.
No, and like if you know how an API works, that helps a lot. If you know how databases are structured, it helps a lot. Like I would say, and people that I've talked to about this, if you don't have a technical foundation, it makes a huge difference to go and do like a 6-hour course on the basics of software development, like learn how APIs work, learn how database design is done. And that makes just such a difference, because even like Git, knowing Git and how to use Git functions, it's like makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's see what it came back with. Final design spec. So this is what it's going to look like. All activity, building A. Yeah, that's what we want. So styling, state management, truncation. Yeah, this sounds good. Yes, go ahead and implement. One of the things, if I were doing something that would require a database change or an edge function, I would push this further and say, can you explain how you're using best practices? That teaches me a lot as well. It'll say like, oh, well, here's why it's a good idea. Or I'll say, would this pass CTO approval? And I actually find that question is really good for Cursor, because when you say, will it pass CTO approval, it makes it consider like, what's the most robust way that we could build this feature? A lot of the times it'll recognize that would be overkill. Is like, well, how many users do you have? What's your intention? Is this 1,000 users? Is it 1,000,000 users? So that goes into Cursor's thought process as well. This is just a pretty simple feature, so I don't need to go through that, but that's typically how I would go through it.
Yeah. And again, while it's working on this, you mentioned before, you talked a little bit about migrations. So even the fact that like you're familiar with what that migrations are and all that stuff, you had to learn a little bit about that. Like, did you ever have trouble handling like the database specifically and like using migrations or changing the schema? Like, what was that process like of like learning how to do that?
I actually like wrestled a lot learning that. Like to be honest, I didn't even know what a migration was before I started this. Like I've built products before and I've heard of people doing database migrations, but I didn't know what a migration file actually was. And so I had to get Cursor to explain a lot of that. But I have a process for how I make database changes. So Supabase actually now allows you to do branching of the database, but I had a development and a production database in Supabase. And so what I would do is use Cursor to actually run the commands to create the migrations, evaluate the migrations, and then push the migrations. So Supabase you can interact with directly through the command line. And I can show you after we get to the end of this feature how you can work with the command line. Like Cursor knows how to push this stuff. And so it'll create a process for itself. It'll say, okay, first pull everything from the database, see what's going on. Do you have any outstanding migrations? Here's the one that we need to push. It's going to first push it to the dev database. And then it'll say, okay, now go and test it, make sure it works, come back to me. And once I say, yep, looks good in dev, now we can go push that same migration to prod. And then that would be in prod. And then there you go. And then I also have Cursor help me write my commits and summarize what we've done. So I can show you that after. Okay, Let's see where we got with here. So this is the file that it changed. It's the logs page. Here are all the changes it made. And let's go see what it looks like. Okay, that's better than what it came up with the last couple of times when I tried this. Like some spacing is off, but Kelowna Airbnb, it'll filter by that. Calgary condo. So it's working. You can kind of scroll if you have more. That's pretty good. I'd probably work on some of the spacing and things like that, maybe reduce the padding here. But that was actually pretty good for first try.
Yeah.
2 other times it like had spacing way off, or it tried to create a card that looked like this for the pills. So again, if you had a component library, solve that problem, but it's pretty good actually.
Yeah, it looks great. And then, so you mentioned before, like it didn't go as smoothly. What do you normally do when it doesn't work the way you wanted?
So this is where my favorite is just the git reset. So the thing, if you're vibe coding, particularly in Cursor, but I know Replit, Bolt, they all allow you to do this. Like you can revert back to previous stages, commit often with Cursor. So let's say we got to this point. I can just create a commit and I'll show you what I'd do. So this looks decent. We'll commit it. If it just made a mess of it or I didn't like the design, and you could just say, no, like change this design, make it more bubble shaped, or like make it a drop down, things like that. You could do that and you could iterate through, or you just go and do a git reset back to your previous commit. So I'll just go into the command line down here and I'll do a git add and then git commit, and we'll call this feature filter chips on activity page. And so that would allow me to commit that. So now this is like a checkpoint basically. And then let's go and I'll just say, let's remove this buzzer activity thing. Remove the buzzer activity header. The other thing that I found is that even while I've been building this, Cursor upgraded from Claude 3.7 to Claude 4. Claude 4 is so much better.
Yeah.
It's got a way bigger context window. So where this thread that we've got going is quite short right now. It's enough to keep in the context window. But when you build a bigger feature with database changes and things like that, stuff starts to fall out of the context window and it starts to forget what it did before. So now I think the Claude 4 has like 120K token context window, which makes a big difference because it allows you to build bigger features in one thread. But what I would do is before this, I would break it out into multiple chats. So I'd create this commit that we just did together. And now when I move on, I would just create a new chat and say, okay, now we're going to do something different. What do you know about how the logs page? Give it all the context again, and then go from there. That was the approach, but it's been able to build some pretty big features just from the same context window now. Okay, so it removed that, and let's say I wasn't happy with it. Now I can just do git reset hard, and now we're back to what we had before. So if you make a mess of something, just revert, and then you're back to where you were before.
Yeah, cool. And so you also have to learn like git commands, it looks like, right?
Yeah.
So that's a whole other thing. It's like a little minor computer science degree that you have to put yourself through.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
but even that is, it's like, watch this. Like I could say, okay, go commit this for me and tell me what you're doing while you go. And it can do that stuff for you. I've now done this enough times to see, but see, it's going to do that. So it's going to see git status, run that. So it can do that for you.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And that's how I learned it.
Right. And then one last question for you. Do you use like branches at all or like pull requests, or are you committing directly to main as you're
I commit directly to main, and I know that's not good practice.
No, that's actually okay. I think one thing that like is a good thing for folks to remember is just like whatever you can do right now is probably the best thing. It's very easy to get overwhelmed, right? So like
yeah.
It's great that you're already here, and if at some point in time you decide pull requests are worth it, then cool. I'll also say that like as an individual working on a small project, there's no necessarily reason to have pull requests, right? Like you can test on your local, you can, merge directly into main when you're ready, and all that good stuff. So yeah, don't worry too much about like the best practices there.
Yeah. And it's funny you bring that up because when I was working on the app before this, which has not seen the light of day, but it was the Splitwise app that I made. I spent so much time going down rabbit holes of like making sure that I was following best practices. And it was like, it's pretty stressful. Like, oh, like, I don't know if this is good or not, but you know what? Like half the time you build something and it's not going to go anywhere anyway. Figure out something that you can get some users for, use it for yourself, and then start to iterate from there, because it doesn't matter if you've got a bulletproof database or the best architecture in the world. If no one uses it, then it doesn't need to scale.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. And then, just kind of two questions to wrap up. So one is, how did you actually end up getting users? I think that's kind of the biggest problem that most people have. Once they figure out this part, then like they don't know how to actually get customers. And then two is, what's the plans for what comes next with this?
So like I said, the way that I built this out was not with the intention of having customers. It made things harder because I had to get Stripe integrated. I had to automate the process of getting a number when you signed up. Like I would just go and pull this manually from Twilio. I started showing some friends who also live in condo buildings, and they're like, whoa, can I use this for my building? Or then other people started saying, well, I can't even use my phone number for my buzzer because they're from Alberta and you have to use a local phone number for your buzzer because the building will incur long distance charges every time someone calls. So they're like, well, I can't even use my buzzer because I have a Alberta phone number. They're like, set me up on this. And then I started to like ask them, like, would you actually pay for this? Because the Twilio numbers aren't free and you have to pay rent for the Twilio numbers every month. So I asked them, like, would you pay for this? And they were like, yeah. So set that up with Stripe. And that's how I started to get the first couple users. And then I made a couple LinkedIn posts, and that's all the marketing that I've done so far. I haven't run any advertising, mainly because I wanted to make sure that this was going to hold up. Like I didn't know what was going to happen when I had 10 users. Like, is the app going to crash? I don't know. I have it all instrumented though. So I use PostHog and I use like Sentry for logging and stuff like that. So I have everything instrumented and I can see how performance is affected and just monitoring it like that. But then I've also, so this is actually more of a problem for businesses than it is for users. It bothers me because I don't like missing deliveries and I always miss these phone calls, but it's a real nice to have for residents. But for businesses, I was in at a sauna house in Vancouver the other day, and they have to buzz customers in because they're in a commercial building. So they have to buzz all of their customers into the building when they show up. And it's somebody running around with a phone. So even if the receptionist is away from the desk, they're carrying the phone with them and they have to answer these calls. So they're like, oh yeah, like we can use this. So I think it's definitely more of a pain point for businesses who don't want to leave customers waiting outside, potentially losing business. Yeah. And then also for anyone who manages Airbnbs, because that's a problem if you've got a buzzer and having to always make sure you're answering it for guests to get in. So
Yeah, that makes sense. So then, yeah, what's next? So like you mentioned you're at, I think you said 50-ish customers, was that right? Or 20-ish?
Yeah, it's got 30 customers
30.
right now.
Okay.
I mean, my goal would be, I'd love to see this get to like 2,000 MRR.
Yeah.
So if I could have this make $2,000 a month, that would be a win. But it's already a win for me. Like I use this every day and my friends like it. So, I mean, I don't need this to be a huge business, but you know, if I can get this to a couple hundred or 1,000 users, that'd be a huge win. And I got to figure out how I want to market it because there's a ton of friction for onboarding. Like one, getting people to sign up for anything is way harder than you think it is. So you build something and you're like, everyone's like, oh, it's cool. Like, can I use this? And then no one even creates an account because there's friction. And then there's added friction with this one where you have to sign up, set up a number, give it to your building manager, go down, talk to them. Like there's so much friction involved in this. So it has to really be a problem for you to sign up. But like I said, if I can get this to a couple hundred users or 1,000 users, that would be awesome.
Yeah. One thing I think it's cool about like just the way that you're talking, by the way, is it's very clear to me that you understand the product side. Like you're bouncing between the two, right? Like talking about, friction, the user experience, the fact that like people are just going to bounce on the login page. And then I assume at some point, like once you have a clear idea what you want to change, kind of switch gears back to the implementation side of things, right? And kind of go through that whole thing.
Like I wish we could have done this feature together because I think it would have been an awesome example to go through, but it's going to take about an hour or two to build this. But when you sign up, you get a phone number, and I showed you when I was giving the demo, like I got a text message that said, hey, someone's accessed the building. I think that would be a really cool onboarding flow where if you sign up, you put in your phone number, your personal phone number, and then as soon as you sign up, you get a text message from your buzzer number. It's like, here's your buzzer number. This is the number that you're going to give to your building manager. And then you can kind of like help the onboarding process from there. Because right now when you sign up, it automatically sends you an email and says, hey, here's your buzzer number. I think it would just be really cool to have that automatically come and say, hey, this is your new buzzer number. This one belongs to you. I think that would be a really cool onboarding experience. But so that one would require database changes, a new edge function, some Twilio configuration. So it'd probably be about, 2 hours, maybe 3 hours to build that end to end, but that would be cool.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. And just to wrap up, is there anywhere people should check out you and the stuff you're working on online?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I haven't really been active on LinkedIn lately, but I'm just starting to get involved. I've been watching a lot on LinkedIn and I haven't really been contributing. So I think it's just a place where I'm starting to contribute more. So that's probably the best place to find me. And then, if you want to try out the app, send me a message and I can send you a code to try it out for a month. There's also a free trial, but love to chat with anyone else who's trying to build end to end, and especially people who come from a product background.
Well, Darren, this was awesome. Thanks for sharing. And happy to have you on. And hopefully you get to your $2,000 a month. I'm sure I'll get there soon.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. This was fun.